Blizzard have announced that they'll be revealing their next World of Warcraft expansion at Gamescom this year, rather than their own show, Blizzcon, which is a little unusual. Now, Ollie Welsh, you've been to Blizzcon a few times, you've followed Blizzard for a good long while. This is weird, right? Usually they do it at their own show.
Yeah, and indeed, the PR cycle and release cycle for World of Warcraft has been pretty much metronomic since the game started. Every 2 years they announce at BlizzCon in November, and then every 2 years, in the years when they don't announce the expansion, they released one, so also usually around November.
Yeah, Warlords of Draenor was like mid-November this year, I think, something like that.
So yeah, this isn't really what we were expecting at all. Although we knew that they were going to be making a fairly big noise at Gamescom, it's a show they always like to support. And they've certainly got enough to talk about with a new expansion for Hearthstone, all the StarCraft 2 stuff happening later this year, Heroes of the Storm kicking off. It seems remarkable that they're going to do WoW at this time as well.
Yeah, now we knew that, well, at least they were planning to release the expansions at a more rapid pace from Draenor onwards.
Well, but yeah, I know, but the thing is, they've been saying this literally since the game came out. They said, oh yeah, eventually we're going to do an expansion every year. And it's been 10 years now, and basically everybody had stopped believing that quite a long time ago. I think they did recently reconfirm that's something they would want to do. It's true that it would make a lot of sense at this stage in the game's life cycle, I think, to change it up and maybe start doing smaller dollops of content more frequently, because so the effect you get with the player population on WoW is it always spikes when a new expansion comes out and then dips gradually, and then when the new next expansion comes out, it spikes again. Yeah,
the impression I got is that Draenor showed that even more clearly than before.
Yeah, it was extremely pronounced. Like the spike was even higher because the expansion was so clearly targeted at bringing old players back in. So the spike was even higher. Yeah, it's really interesting
to see how the reaction to Draenor has changed since then, because I remember in the first few months there was a lot of positivity around it. The new questing was well received. The garrison system at one point seemed really quite good, and then it's sort of drifted a little bit since then.
It's very much focused on the individual player experience, and I think it hasn't done enough probably for the community in the long term. It just doesn't have the stickiness of some of their other expansions. So what you've seen, but I think probably because the game is so old now, I think you would be seeing this anyway, to be quite honest, is that it had this spike and then it's tailed off quite sharply, and numbers went from very quickly from 10 million to 6 million, I think. So part of this it would make sense at this stage in the game's lifestyle to try and start delivering content a bit more quickly. So this might indicate that the next WoW expansion is going to be out sooner than end of next year.
Right. Why Gamescom though? Why reveal it now instead of how they would usually do it at BlizzCon?
Well, this is the big question. Like, assuming it's not actually going to be out within the next few months, I would have been tempted to announce this expansion later rather than sooner, because they've always had this really, really long, whole year PR cycle on the expansions, and then you just leave the player base sitting there for a whole year thinking about what they're going to be playing next rather than concentrating on the content that's in the game now. It always seemed a bit off to me. So doing it even sooner seems unusual. So I think they must be clearing the decks for something else at BlizzCon.
You think that's like, if you were to speculate, and most of this is speculation, what do you think? That's something brand new, or are we talking like a Diablo expansion? What do you think that?
I don't think it's going to be a brand new game, because they did that last year with Overwatch, and I just don't believe that they have another one in development. Diablo expansion would make sense. We think that game was always due to get a third expansion. They were pretty cautious about it when Reaper of Souls came out, because the game had been so controversial and they'd had such a hammering from the community since it came out. I'm pretty sure they will have been very happy with the response to Reaper, and the game has generally sold well. The console versions have been successful. So I would think that they then decided to go ahead with a third expansion, which we know was always on their roadmap. So that seems like a safe bet. At the same time, you would think that a World of Warcraft expansion was still a bigger deal than a Diablo 3 expansion at this stage. So saving Diablo for their big show seems a little unusual. But they may be calculating that a WoW expansion is just not as exciting as it used to be. This would be the 6th one. Yeah. So they may just realise that it's not quite as big news anymore.
One other thing to consider, I guess, is that we'll also be hearing more about the Warcraft movie at this year's BlizzCon, right? You'd imagine maybe some kind of proper trailer.
Yeah, I do think there's going to be a trailer. I think it's possible that the film company have even announced that they plan to do a trailer towards the end of this year, and BlizzCon would be obviously the ideal venue to release it. So I think that's a bit of a no-brainer, but a trailer is a few minutes long and it's not going to fill the whole of Blizzard's 90-minute opening ceremony where they traditionally make their announcements. So there must be something else, unless it's going to be a deep dive on the film, but I don't think it's going to be that. They always do deep dives separately in panels. So there must be something else. There must be another announcement. It could be something else Warcraft favoured. Immediately everybody's going to start screaming and running around in circles going, Warcraft 4, Warcraft 4.
Oh, but, my goodness.
Warcraft 4, I am 100% certain does not exist, because that would be made by the StarCraft 2 team, and they are currently not only making the third expansion for StarCraft 2, but they're also making Heroes of the Storm, so they're a little bit too busy. Maybe like 4 or 5 years down the line. The other thing, there is a rumour has circulated for a while that Blizzard is doing remastered versions of Warcraft 1, 2 and 3 with full Battle.net support.
That would fit quite nicely, and also I would totally like to play Warcraft 3 again.
Yeah, so it could be that sounds, it's a little unusual, but it does sound feasible. It would actually not be a huge project for them. They could probably do it in the StarCraft 2 engine and do all 3 games in the same engine and just tie it all together with their nice online infrastructure. So yeah, I mean that sounds feasible. I could put that together with a Diablo 3 expansion and
hey, you've got a BlizzCon
and a trailer for the film, and yeah, all of a sudden you've got something that looks like a BlizzCon. Plus, of course, going in much greater detail into the WoW expansion.
Sure.
But then again, like they're quite good at doing the unexpected. Whilst you've always been able to predict that there would be a World of Warcraft expansion, it's been quite rare that we've been able to predict what was in it until the leak that comes out like 2 days before. But I don't think anybody...
Yeah, there have been a few leaks I've seen recently regarding the next WoW expansion. Okay, right. To wrap this video up quite nicely, I think the reveal is happening on Thursday of Gamescom, 9 AM PDT.
Yeah.
What theme are we going to see? Where is the expansion going to take place?
If I was Wes, I would be like screaming Emerald Dream in your face.
I just don't see it. I don't see it. Malfurion's back. I don't think it's Emerald Dream. I'm going to regret saying that. Oh, Wes is going to be so smug if that's what it is.
The question for me is whether they are going to close the Warlords of Draenor alternate timeline or somehow continue with that. I've got a suspicion they're going to continue with it, and it's going to be about how that impacts... You're going to go back to Azeroth, but there's going to be an impact from the Warlords of Draenor expansion having happened in that alternate timeline in Azeroth somehow. Or whether you're going to see red-skinned orcs running around everywhere or not, I don't know.
Man, this is getting into like Metal Gear Solid levels of trying to keep up with the timeline and where certain characters are and what's going on. But yeah, no, okay. So you think
What's your bet?
The big baddie for me right now, the only one that really sticks out is Sargeras, right? The Titan that went bad.
Yeah.
He seems like, I mean, we've done Deathwing, we've done the Lich King. Although that being said, the Lich King is still around. I mean, it's not Arthas anymore, so. I mean, maybe one day we'll return there. I just don't see it being this one. I think big baddie, world-destroying capabilities, it's the big chap.
But wouldn't you never do Sargeras because he would basically be the end of the game, and you don't want to end an MMO?
Ollie, we are in a World of Warcraft now in which alternate timelines can exist. I think it's feasible. So yeah, that's where my money's at.
Cool.
And yeah, we'll both be proved wrong in just a few days.
Yeah,
so
I look forward to it.
Cool, thank you, Ollie.
Bye.
So this is probably going to be something of a disaster, because fueled by, I don't know, some unexpected nostalgia, the Eurogamer team have decided to return to World of Warcraft and play an old dungeon. So shall we introduce ourselves?